Child throws herself on the floor. I feel that initial heat start to rise and frustration. And then I just like take a deep breath, let it out, and ask what she needs. A really important thing with reactions is to take a breath and to ask a question.
Hey guys, hope everyone's having an awesome week so far. Today we have Elise Knox, who is a life and wellness coach for teens and moms, and she's talking all about becoming the master of your reactions. She talks a lot with moms that are feeling stuck in their day-to-day, haven't really taken the time to ask themselves how they're doing or how they can feel better or get unstuck. So we have an awesome conversation today, and I just love talking with Elise. And of course, stick around at the very end for our MomTales of the week. This is where we read your responses to our questions on social media, and we have a lot of fun reading them. So stick around at the very end for that. And without further ado, here's my interview with Elise Knox. First of all, can you just tell us about you and who you are, what you do, and all that?
I am a mom of two girls. They are just turned 6 and almost 9, and the stepmom of a 24-year-old. So I work with moms and teens, and as a life and wellness coach. So I used to be a middle school teacher, and when I had my oldest daughter, I really decided that I wanted to be home with her and then my younger one as much as possible. So I stopped doing that and kind of was like left the teenage school world behind. And then like during staying at home with my kids, I also had an autoimmune condition undiagnosed, and I found health coaching because I kind of solved my health problems through functional medicine. And so I found this health coaching program and I loved it and I took it. And once my youngest one went to preschool, I started kind of looking for positions. I was coaching some privately, but I was also looking for a job. And I got a job at a middle school and high school coaching teens. And I was like, this is not how I saw myself using this. But I also it was really wonderful to connect back to that part of my life. And what I found was it was great, but not having that connection to the family was kind of, I could only go so far with coaching the teen. So then I went back to being on my own, and I love working with teens and I really love working with moms. And a lot of the time a mom will call me because she's having some challenges with her teen or her kids of any age really. And I almost always find that supporting the mom is just as important as supporting the child.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. And
Yeah.
so a lot of what we want to talk about today is how a lot of the patterns that moms might go through, maybe feeling stuck or feeling like kind of on autopilot, not like, or not, or like their own needs are getting met. So, how can moms tell if they're kind of in that spot, starting to feel stuck?
I would say when even the smallest things are very triggering to a state that small of a thing shouldn't send you into. So, for example, your kid's not listening, which isn't out of the ordinary, really, but on this particular day or this week, it feels like the end of the world.
Mhm.
That's one way. And when a lot of us as moms, we wanted this our whole lives, and yet there's a point where it starts to feel heavy and maybe monotonous and just kind of not filling your cup anymore. That's another really good time to be really to look within and be like, what's going on here?
So, when they get to that point where they kind of understand that they are getting stuck, how can they start to understand what their needs are in that moment? Kind of like pulling themselves out of it and realizing, okay, I have needs to, how can they kind of move past that part?
Yeah. So with our needs, they're often forgotten because we're really busy taking care of our kids' needs, our husband's needs, maybe our parents' needs. we often forget that we have them too. And what is really going on when you have that feeling that I talked about of like being unfulfilled or just feeling not connected to anything and being triggered by everything is underneath those feelings, there's a need that's not being met. And so it's really often going like maybe journaling or looking within, taking a few moments to yourself. And I know that can be really hard sometimes as a mom, especially with little ones, but really like asking yourself, okay, this is my feeling. Like, what is underneath that feeling that's not being met for me? Like, feelings are really things that we have in our bodies, like a sensation that we're actually feeling. I think often we get kind of confused. Like, I feel like you're being, you're not doing what I want. And that's not really a feeling that we have in our own bodies. So, really getting clear first on like, what am I feeling right now? I'm feeling stuck. So, what underneath that, like everything's tight in my body. I'm not fulfilled. Underneath that, like, what is that need? Maybe it's, I need space. I need time. Like, I need to go to the bathroom by myself or whatever it is. Maybe it's, I really need to connect with a friend. Maybe it's, I really need some connection with my husband. Like, what is going on? Maybe it's just, I need to go like to the beach for an afternoon. I don't know what it is for each person, but often there's a need under there. And as women, we're so hesitant. Like when I work with women and I'm working one-on-one like this, and I bring this question up, a lot of women and moms especially are kind of like embarrassed or ashamed to say like, I need a break, because it's not, they think they shouldn't need one.
Mhm.
And so like it's really looking in and being okay with what comes up.
And so how does this clarity, so if all women, listening to this, take a step back and kind of ask themselves, what do I need right now? What kind of clarity can that help with, in the future in their lives and so much more beyond that?
So once you can get really, once I have met some women who are very clear on their needs and who aren't afraid to just say like, this is what I need. And I'm always like kind of shocked and in awe. And sometimes it can be a little off-putting because we're not used to women doing that. And it's so empowering, because then when you start to feel that feeling of like, ooh, disconnection, like everything's not flowing, and things aren't making me happy, like everything, I'm getting annoyed by everything. And you can take a step back and say, what do I need right now? And then you can act on that, or you can say to your partner or your kids, maybe if they're a little bit older, I need a break right now. Then you get that time to take care of yourself, and you can come back rejuvenated and connected and all of those things.
What are your tips? I know we kind of talked about figuring out your needs and stuff, but for a mom listening right now that's feeling really stuck, what are your biggest tips for someone in that situation right now to kind of get unstuck or at least start the process of getting unstuck?
It really is taking some time, some quiet time. And there's journals, or there's things that you can use to kind of spark, if sitting down and writing isn't for you. But even just I was always a night person. And when my oldest daughter started kindergarten, like literally the day she started, the day before, I was like, I don't think I've ever woken up before her. I was always woken up by her because I like to sleep in, and she didn't sleep very well for much of her life. And I was like, I'm going to be a hot mess if I don't wake up like an ample amount of time before her to have some time to myself, and like try to get her out of the house every morning at 7:30. Like 9, before kindergarten, 9 was hard to get out of the house. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And I woke up before her. And that really started a new trend for me in my life of every morning I do these things in the dark quiet of my house to connect with myself and check in with myself. and have my coffee or tea in like introspection and quietness. And it really changed the game for me in parenting and just being a human, really, because I started each day with like a calm feeling versus a like, oh my gosh, it's time to get up, like hit the road running. My personal practice is to I like sit quietly with a guided meditation or sometimes just sitting quietly, and then I journal for a little while every morning because and I don't like it's not a like a beautiful poetic journal at all. It's literally sometimes it's like a to-do list for the day. Sometimes it's like, what do I need to do for my business? Sometimes it's like, I don't know, like it's not beautiful, but it helps me get the chatter and the clutter up here out of my mind.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually just talking to Beth Isbell last week about that, and just kind of, even if we're especially if we're like perfectionists, or we have that idea where we're like very like we have to do all these things, a lot of times that stops us from starting to write, because we're like, oh, it's not going to be beautiful or perfect or have any big meaning to it. But the more we just do that, like chicken scratch writing, or just quickly like jumble words out, it helps so much just by getting it out. Because I don't think we realize how many times a day we just add more to our
Mhm.
heads, and we're like so overwhelmed. And so by just writing it down, I think we kind of almost free up some space and allow ourselves to process our thoughts and understand what's going on. So I love that you brought that up again, because I'm a big fan of journaling and writing stuff down, even if it's not going to be beautiful. Because I know that's like held me back for so long. Because I'd be like, oh, it's not going to be pretty. And I'm like, for who? Like, it's for me.
Totally. It's for you. And like sometimes I go back and read it. Sometimes I never go back and read it, but it's not taking up my mental space. And another thing that I do in the mornings is I created for myself like in a few different areas of my life, I created like a 1 through 10 check-in.
Mhm.
So the work kind of goes in at the beginning where I had to like say like what does a 1 look like and what does a 10 look like. So I did this 1 to 10, and then for other things I've done just 1 to 5, so not quite as in depth, but and then I check in with that every morning. So I do that with my business. Like, how am I feeling in my business right now? Because I have this like health autoimmune condition, which I have flare ups sometimes, and I kind of manage it on my own. I also have a check in for that. And so that's a really nice way too to each day have kind of a baseline check-in for how you're feeling, and you can easily go back to your numbers at the top of your page without having to read all your journal entries and maybe judge yourself because your writing isn't as you wish it was. But I can go back and I can see like, oh, there's a dip. I wonder why I was low then, what was going on. So that's another way that I check in. And once you have your rating scale that you get to create, the work is done. It's just every morning, like, how am I feeling today? Is it a 5? Is it a 4?
Yeah, that's a great point about checking in with yourself. It kind of goes back to that autopilot where we kind of just move and take care of everyone around us and forget to say like, okay, wait, how am I actually feeling today? Did something happen yesterday or this morning? Or so I think that's great to really take those few minutes and just be like, okay, how am I feeling today? Would I rate it from a 1 to a 10? Yeah, I love that tip. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like it's interesting to see when like there's two things that I love about it. One is like I can kind of diagnose like, oh, why did it go down there? And the other one is to see like we all have days where it's just like a 2 or like a 4, And and in those lows, those troughs, it can be like, oh my gosh, like this is going to be forever. This is never going to change. And it, for me, it always comes back up. And so another thing that I love about that check-in is like, oh, like I'm a 3 today. That's okay. Like I know by looking back at my history, it'll last a little while and then I'll be back up again. So
Mhm.
it's kind of a nice like we're all going to have lows and we're all going to have highs, and part of life is like figuring out how to be okay with them when you're in them.
And kind of, yeah, giving yourself grace when you do have those lower days. And understanding it doesn't make you a bad mom or a bad person for those days. Cause I think we're so judgmental on ourselves, like, oh, I had a bad day. Oh, I didn't do this perfectly, or I said this. And it's like everyone has them. So if we can kind of see our own lows and highs and kind of understand that it's going to happen, that those things are going to happen. And it's okay to understand them and understand ourselves a little bit better in each of those moments.
Absolutely. And I think, in today's life where we look at everybody's highlight reels on Instagram or wherever you absorb your social media, it's like, oh, that mom like never gets mad at her kid, and that mom always handles things perfectly, and she bakes everything from scratch and all of the things.
Mhm.
And so we judge ourselves a lot harsher, and all of everybody has low days, and it's really like, I think the game is learning to ride the waves rather than like get so off track when you're in a low that it feels like, yeah, you're a bad person, or it means something about you more than like you're in kind of a low spot.
Mhm. Yeah, and you bring up a good point about social media too, is, the highlight reel, because a lot of us compare ourselves based on the highlight reel, not realizing people actively choose what to post. Whether they post something great or something hard or something sad, they are actively choosing what they want to post and what not to post. So, whether someone claims to or says they are real on Instagram, we still have to take in the back of our mind it's not 100% real. Nothing ever is. And that's not their life for most of the time. And I think that's a really, really great point about not, comparing ourselves to what we see online and just knowing what's true for us and, learning to accept it and giving ourselves grace with that.
Yeah, and it's funny. I like there was a time where I was like, I don't want to just be the person posting all of the good stuff. So I want to post like the bad stuff too. And it's exactly what you just said. I was like, well, then I'm like choosing which bad stuff to post. And like that's not real really either. And so I think when you're like on the side of also posting, it's also good to like recognize in yourself, like, oh yeah, when we go do something really amazing as a family, I want to post all these stories. That's what
Mhm.
everybody else is doing. So when I see so and so doing all the amazing things, like they're having a great day today, that doesn't mean that every day looks like that. And so I think it's important with social media to like acknowledge that other people are going, like it's the same as you.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We talk about it a lot in like the Facebook room, or we do like a Facebook room each month. And in our peanut pods, we talk about that a lot because it's a very common thing to compare yourself and, think that you're doing a bad job because of how someone's presenting themselves online. So yeah, I think that's a really great point that you bring up. Something else you'll also talk about is helping moms find ease in motherhood. And I'm sure like that's like, like super what's the word I'm looking for? Like for a lot of moms to hear that, they're like, tell me like how can I make it easier, or how can I find some more ease in my day to day? So what are your tips for moms that listening that maybe are, kind of in the thick of it right now, are having a hard time just to get some more ease? Yeah.
So it's interesting because I work with, like, I am the mom of a little younger kids, and I'm closer to kind of like young toddler parenting life, but I also work with parents of teens. It's different along the spectrum. And there's also some really, really close similarities. And I think one of the things is to like have little moments of space in your day. So it doesn't have to be like self-care has gotten blown out of proportion and all of the things that are like kind of cliche about self-care. But in my personal opinion, like having little moments throughout your day where you're connecting to yourself, and that like oftentimes we're like, oh, like I haven't had a moment all day to like check social media, or like we think that that is a break. But like you mentioned earlier, it's really just putting more input into our brains, and it can put us into comparison. And so having these little moments where like having a cup of tea and holding our cup and feeling the warmth of the tea and smelling the tea or the coffee or whatever it is for you. Like really simple things that connect us back to ourselves. I really believe that like we can only be as connected to others as we are to ourselves. And what it feels like a lot as moms is that we're just like going through all the motions and we don't have time or space in our day to be like, "Hmm, look at that beautiful tree out there," and we think like productivity and like email checking, like we're so connected all the time that we don't have that like I just really believe in like pulling activities, pulling life apart a little bit so that we have moments of like quiet, calm, and not a lot of input.
Yeah, those are all great points because I think it's easy to fall into the busy trap of, oh, I'm so busy, I don't have time, I got to do this, I got to do that, which yes, we all are busy, we all have lots to do, but it's also finding priorities. And if you know growth is a priority or me time is a priority, finding where you can carve out that time or ask for help to have a little more of that time, I think is really great.
I get really busy too. We had a crazy month last month, and I had like this, I was like the part of the chair of the auction for my daughter's school, and my husband had 2 eye surgeries, and we got a puppy. Like, I get it. I was on the week that I had the most of like my daughter's birthday party and this huge event that I was planning. I was like, okay, this is coming. I'm kind of crazy for scheduling this. Like this is going against a lot of the things that I like talk about. So how can I do this week with like without getting to that point of complete burnout and overwhelm and snapping at my kids?
Mhm.
And so it was very much like continue my daily practices. Like see if I can catch a yoga class because I love yoga. Like how can I take these little tiny moments of space into my day? How can I give myself enough time to do these things so that I'm not like over the edge?
Mhm.
It's really like being really intentional. And if we don't take that time for ourselves, it's really hard to be intentional.
Yeah, I've even noticed like when I like go on vacation or something like that, people always comment that they think it's funny. I still wake up early. I still make my tea. Sometimes I still bring my exact tea from home on the trip. I'll read in the morning or journal and they'll comment on it. I'm like, because when I don't, I feel so out of sorts. And it's something that like, the old me or years ago, I wouldn't do because I was like, oh, it's vacation and throw like everything out the window. But then it takes so long to get back because then you're back and you're trying to play catch up, you're trying to get back into things. And so even if you like maybe have like a couple of days off or whatever it is, even taking like one small thing with you, it's like, okay, I'm going to have my journal time in the morning, or I'm going to have tea or, coffee, whatever it is. Yeah. To kind of like bring that quote unquote me time or that little like time where you can kind of work on yourself. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm the same way. I'm like I'm on vacation, waking up at 5:30, so that I can like have my time to myself and feel rejuvenated. Because like I don't want to come back from vacation feeling exhausted and worn out and like worse than I was before I left. But yeah, I think that that's so important, and it's really being like the truth is that we like when we are intentional and when we schedule and we can schedule time to be unscheduled, like it doesn't mean that everything has to be scheduled. We just like went and did something totally impromptu on Mother's Day and it was like super fun. But at the first part of Mother's Day, I woke up early and had my tea and I journaled and I went to yoga and it was wonderful. And then I went and like had that time in the afternoon where I could be carefree and kind of do more like what I wanted and what the family wanted. And I felt really fulfilled and like happy with whatever.
Awesome. Love that. And so we also want to talk a little bit about becoming the master of your reactions. So, first of all, what does it mean to become the master of your reactions? And what are the keys to them becoming the master?
Yeah, so this is also something that changes from like parenting little kids to parenting older kids. And it's like possibly more important when parenting older kids because they're a little bit more aware of every part of your reaction. Younger kids, maybe your facial expression can be in shock, but you can get yourself together, but your teen is going to notice that like shocked face. So we're constantly being like taking in a lot of input. And if we have little kids, our kids are, like just getting my younger daughter dressed in the morning sometimes is extremely challenging. And she wears a school uniform, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But it's like she throws herself on the floor because her sock is itchy or whatever it is. And when I'm in a hurry and my other daughter needs my help and my puppy is whining, like my unplanned out reaction is like anger and frustration that she's slowing me down and doing this. And that's not what I want, how I want her to start her day, with me getting angry and frustrated with her. And so again, like part of it is that I've already taken time to connect with myself in the morning. So I'm like, oh, Stella, like, how can I support you right now? Do you need a new pair of socks? So it's really like, again, it's that space. And sometimes it's child throws herself on the floor. I feel that initial heat start to rise and frustration. And then I just like take a deep breath, let it out, and ask what she needs. A really important thing with reactions is to take a breath and to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
Because our initial response maybe, or like with an older kid, like they're like, can I go to a concert with such and such? And you're like, of course not. Like, are you crazy? That's your first reaction. I was a crazy teen. So the things that I like schemed to try to do, I'm like, I can't believe I even I can't believe I even asked that question, but is like, take a deep breath, let it out, try to control your facial expression and ask a question. Like, and it could just be a purely informational question, like, what about your socks is itchy? Or if like you can't think of anything because you're so frustrated, like, tell me more about that.
Mm-hmm.
Something really simple, so that asking a question gives you time to, it kind of puts the ball back in their court, and it gives you some time to like take a couple breaths and get yourself together.
Mm-hmm. I love that, because then it's not your initial reaction, because I think a lot of times we react before we actually absorb the information or just give it our first instant without actually being like, wait, it's not as big of a deal as we're making it, or this will pass in like a couple minutes or what have you. Because I think if we just work off reaction, it's just going to turn into a big mess.
Yeah, totally. And like sometimes getting clarity on it is important. Like, I mean, if we're with the sock example, like she throws herself on the floor, she doesn't say like my socks are itchy. She's just like, I can't wear these socks, they're terrible, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, ah. And if I say like, if I get mad at her and then we get into an argument, that can happen. Or if I'm like, oh, what's going on with your socks? And she's like, they're so itchy. I'm like, oh, like I would hate to wear itchy socks. Let's take them off and get a new pair.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, it's important to get more information before we just, because yeah, like oftentimes our first reaction is not based on whatever the other person is really going through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that, asking a question too, because then I think it also allows time for the child to understand what they're feeling as well. Because, if they're just so frustrated, and then if they say out loud, like, oh, my sock is itchy, maybe they're like, oh, it's actually, to like kind of hear it out loud, it's like, oh, I can take these off, or I'll find other socks, or, like, oh, mom's here to help me, not like get mad at me. I think that's a really great point of just kind of stepping back, asking them the question, and then they're able to kind of like address their own situation. I think, and then learn how to, react in the future as well.
Totally. It gives them some agency over themselves and like shows them that you're not just like the puppet master who's like, I will tell you what socks to wear, I will do this. They're like, oh, like what is going on? Like, or with an older kid, like, oh yeah, like this, now that I'm like explaining to you why I should get to do this, maybe I don't really think that it's the best idea, or maybe I can at least see why you don't think it's the best idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing that's super important is just like practicing it on little things like socks, so that when bigger things come along, you're practiced in this calmer reaction and asking a question or adding a little space, because sometimes there's going to be things that are really big and that maybe you do need to be a little bit more serious or stern in. And if you're constantly reacting with no, like you can't do that, or what's going on, what's wrong with you, it's going to like, it's just going to be a lot stickier. Whereas if your usual response is a little bit more open, if sometimes you have a reaction that's a little bit more closed, it will give you more room to apologize and connect about it, your not so good reaction, versus if you're always reacting, it's just going to be like a constant kind of blow up.
Mm-hmm. So when someone like reaches out to you for like a meeting, and you said you do like a lot of like one-on-one, so how does it usually like work? Like, do they say like, I have a situation, or I'm currently stuck, like I need some help? Like, what does it kind of look like for you?
Yeah, so typically I have a combination of moms reaching out to me for themselves and moms reaching out to me for it's a lot of the younger people that I work with are like girls from 13 to 16. And so often moms reach out and say, I really need help for my daughter. And then like through a call with them and a call with their daughter might need support, but I really see that they need support too. And so I really tailor like my coaching to the family or the mom or the daughter. Sometimes I just work with moms, sometimes I just work with teens, and then sometimes I work with both.
Awesome. And I always like to end these with fun thinking questions. So if you could have a billboard made today where you could share one tip with moms everywhere, what would you have it say?
I think I would have it say the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself.
Awesome. I love that. And of course, where can everyone follow you and find everything that you have to offer?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Elise Knox Connection Coach, and my website is eliseknox.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was a great interview. I think it had, so many tips for moms that are just kind of feeling stuck or kind of wanting to respond better, like you said, and kind of give themselves more grace and just kind of feel better about, each day. I think that was great.
Yeah, I'm so like there's another quote that I love that's like, heal the mama, heal the world. And I so believe that, because we start every day with our kids. And so we do have the power to like create this space for them and for us that's really loving and nurturing and supportive and connected. And if we're not doing that with ourselves, it's so hard to do it for other people. And so I'm just so passionate about supporting moms through every stage of motherhood.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, that's so true. That self-work can really go a long way.
It really can. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was so nice meeting you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, guys, it's time for our Mom Tales of the Week. And this week we asked you to share what's the weirdest thing you've ever caught your kid doing. And we got so many good responses, very funny. And what we've kind of like learned in these moments is that, when things happen with your kids, It's very easy to get mad in the moment or get upset. But a lot of times when you look back on them, they're like the ones where they make the most memories. They're ones you can laugh at, smile at. So, I just hope when you're listening to this that it kind of gives you a different take on things. So if something happens today, you're able to just, laugh at it and see it as they're making a memory right now. So that's one way to look at it. So we got a lot of great responses like we normally do. We post on our social media, in our Facebook group, and all that good stuff. So here we go. Number 1, Laura. I have a 9-month-old who pretends he's pooping, squat and grunt really loud when he feels like I'm not giving him any attention. I wonder where he learned that from, if he saw someone do that, or he just realized, oh, if I make this sound, they're gonna come to my aid. That's hilarious. Okay, number 2, Jessica. We were out of toilet paper in the downstairs restroom, so I asked my son to bring me down some. He brought about 10 sheets. I said, no, I need the entire roll. He came down the stairs with an entire roll completely unrolled in his arms. Man, I would not expect anything less. I can picture it now, the whole mummy look where it's just wrapped all around them. Well, I guess at least you didn't specify if you wanted it rolled or not. You just wanted the entire roll. So there we go. Number 3, Carissa. My 2-year-old was a very good girl on a road trip recently, so I told her I would buy her a treat. She decided she wanted 2 small scented candles that she now sleeps with. That is hilarious. I love that. I mean, I think it's so funny because you would never expect, especially a 2-year-old, to want candles instead of candy or a stuffed animal or something like that. But hey, she's a girl through her own heart. I mean, hey, I love candles, but it took me years to really love them. That's hilarious. Number 4, Anonymous. I was sound asleep and at around 6 a.m. I was woken up by my 4-year-old daughter's face inches from mine. She looked right into my eyes and said, I want to peel all of your skin off. What? Okay, the backstory here is I had been sunburned the previous week and I was just starting to peel. In my sleep-altered state, however, I was pretty terrified for a few seconds. I don't know if I was dreaming or what was going on. Okay, that is hilarious because the fact that your daughter just woke up at 6 a.m. and was like, I need to go tell her I want to peel her skin off. But that would be kind of startling at first to wake up and see your daughter's face 4 inches from you. And just 4 inches, I just made that up. And see your daughter's face inches from you saying she wants to peel your skin off. That's scary. That's kind of scary. I don't even know what else to say. That's hilarious. Okay, number 5, Kim. When I was little, my mom caught me bringing eggs from the kitchen into my room and sitting on them in a blanket nest, hoping they would hatch. That is so sweet. Oh my gosh, I remember in 1st grade we had chickens. No, we had ducks. We had ducks. And I didn't understand that those were different than the eggs in our fridge. And we had a duck that hatched and his name was Sam and he'd follow us around. I always told my mom I wanted one, but I didn't realize that it was completely different. I thought that was the same thing. So I get it. Number 6, Kelly. Caught my daughter drinking strawberry milk and then spitting it back into the cup so she could drink it again. That should come with a warning, a trigger warning. I think I just gagged a little bit. Drinking the strawberry milk and spitting it back up so she could drink it again. She loved it that much. I'm not going to talk too much about it because that really grosses me out. Oh gosh. Okay. Number 7, Teresa. When my son was 3 years old, I caught him washing his eyebrows with facial cleanser. Just his eyebrows. Wet, lather, rinse, repeat. He said it made them nice and soft. That's a first. I've never heard of a little kid caring so much about washing their eyebrows. I don't even know if I tend to wash them so detailed like that. Just themselves, I mean. He just must really care about his eyebrows. That's hilarious. Okay, number 8, Lynn. I walked into the kitchen one day to see my 4-year-old son cleaning the counter with a piece of ham. A piece of ham. That's one way to do it. I mean, bet your kitchen smells like a holiday or something. He then went over to the sink, washed off the piece of ham, and started to eat it. Hopefully the counter wasn't too dirty. I mean, he washed it off. So he was thinking ahead. He was like, okay, this ham, it's spongy. I could use it. I could help mom. I'll clean the counter. It's totally fine. But wait, that ham smells really good and I'm kind of hungry. Okay, I'll just rinse it off and it'll be fine. I'll just eat it out. So he thought it through a little bit. That's good. Number 9. I'm noticing most of these stories are 3 and 4-year-olds. So that might be the age of funny stories. We got a 9-month and a 2-year-old. Okay, number 9. Alexandra. My daughter, who's 5, took a sip of juice from a straw, spit it into her hand, and proceeded to rub it into her hair like it was hair product or something, right after I'd given her a shower. Just why? I mean, you know, she's thinking forward. She probably saw someone doing something with their hair and she thought, you know what, this smells really good. I would like to smell like this all day. Maybe I'm giving her more credit than she actually thought she put into it. But, you know, people put like mayonnaise in their hair to add more, like condition their hair. So maybe juice does something to your hair too. And she could be thinking ahead for all of us. Who knows? I know when I was a kid, my sister and I put peanut butter on our face and we would pretend to do skincare commercials and we'd be like, oh, we're just gonna put a little eye cream here. And I don't know where that came from because there wasn't like YouTube or, you know, tutorial videos like that. So I don't know where it came from. I just remember us being in the kitchen being like, oh yes, we're gonna put the cream here. And I was definitely old enough to know better. I was not like a 5-year-old. I mean, maybe around there, but I think I was a little bit older. So I won't say how old. I don't know, but I definitely think I was older than 5. All right, well that's all I've got for this week, guys. I loved reading your responses. We got, like I said, lots of good ones. And as always, we post these on our social media every Friday, new questions, new mom confessions, and so much more. It's just a fun way to get your take on motherhood. Like I said earlier, have some laughs. You know, sometimes in the moment, things seem so serious and so harsh and so like hard to deal with. But a lot of the times those turn into core memories, things that we can laugh at, stories we can tell later. So maybe we can just have a little different perspective as things happen and not take some of these things so harshly and just kind of have a little laugh with our kids. All right, guys, that's all I got for this week. And I will see you next week for a brand new episode of Mom Talks. Hey guys, if you found this or any episode of Mom Talks with Christa helpful, please like, comment, subscribe, and of course, share it with your friends. We release new videos every single Wednesday, and our new podcast is out every single Thursday. So lots of different ways you can catch us. And of course, if you're not following us on our socials, go ahead and follow us there. We've got tons of new content for you every single day. And finally, if you're watching this and doubting yourself, you're doing a great job. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.